In this week's video, we're gonna show you how I built this electric heat treat oven for heat treating knives and small parts in the shop. Welcome back to Fab Adventures, guys. Today we're building this here heat treat oven, and I've already got her built. Obviously you can see it looks pretty awesome, and I'll be starting to get back into knives, so I wanted a heat treat oven so that I can do stainless steels and other more complicated heat treats. And for that you need an oven that can ramp up and ramp down, hit and hold certain temperatures for soak and whatnot. So here we go. It worked out pretty good. It's got a 6" by 6" by about a 17" depth interior compartment made up of fire brick, this sweet little metal shroud I made, and a controller I got off Amazon. And you should be able to see it warming up in there. And it works pretty darn good. I still got to learn the controller, but hang around and watch and see how the build goes. So to not bore you with going right through every one of these little parts, I'll just kind of key on the bigger items that you're going to need. Obviously fire brick here. I think I've got 24 bricks. Got them off of Amazon. These things here are your SSD relays. You definitely got to have those, and heat sinks for it. Some wiring, some high temp wiring, ceramic insulators, switches, paste for in between your SSR and your heat sinks, and then a good PID controller basically. And this is the one that the guy that I'm kind of copying this electronics. I'll put a link actually to his video so you guys can go and look at it, because he explains it like really good. And me and wiring are just not, it's not my forte. So I will leave a link to this guy's video, give him a shout out and whatnot, because I think his video is probably the best one so far on the internet on building yourself a DIY heat treat oven. And it's definitely a good video. You guys should go watch it. And I'll be putting a link to all these parts here below in the description. So if you guys are wanting to check some of the stuff out or find it, you know, I'll give you a Amazon.ca links for all these parts, and maybe I'll even put in some Amazon.com links for you guys to check out. So let's start building this thing. All right, so we actually did not too bad. Out of 24 bricks, only 2 were broken, which I should be able to put a little cement in these and kind of glue them back together. And or maybe I'll just use them in a spot that's not so critical and keep the good ones for, you know, the main spots like the door closure and whatnot. But so this, if you want to imagine, is the roof part of it, and then these are going to get, you know, they'll get shaved down, so there's a little bit of a notch, so they kind of interlock. So the actual inside dimension of this is going to get a little bit narrower and maybe a little bit lower than this actual height, but that's not a big problem. That should be pretty good. And probably when it's all said and done, you'll be able to do a 16" maybe 15" 16" if you go corner ways in there, total length knife. So that's a pretty big knife. I typically, back in the day when I made knives, didn't make many big ones like that. They were all hunters and small folders and stuff like that. So this should be pretty darn good for us, and I can't wait to get this thing done and get it trying out and start making knives again. It's been, it's probably been just about 20 years since I used to make knives, and I used to do it full time actually, and I did pretty good at it, and I just liked the artistic part of it, you know, just whatever you could think up. And I did all my best work at night, so I'd be out in the shop till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning building knives and whatnot. So here we go. We're gonna basically take this here cement, and we're gonna basically start gluing these bricks up the way they are, and then we'll be notching them out, and you'll see that later. All right, there you go. You can see pretty well what the heat treat furnace is going to look like, and it's got a little bit of a warp like this, but I can just move this back and forth and kind of lap it in, and then once I get it lapped in nice and square, I can cement it all together. But first, before I cement it all together, I got to cut the grooves in for the heating elements, and then basically I got to build a back that pops in here, and the back is not going to be cemented in together, but basically once I get my heating grooves put in, then I'll cement the whole thing into one solid heat treat oven. We'll build the back door so it kind of pops in there, and I'll find some way to lock it in. And I want to make the back removable, and obviously the front door comes up. That way when it comes time to re-element the heat treat oven, if you want to call it that, because those heating elements don't last forever, and there is a chance that you're going to have to make new elements and put them in there. So I want this back door to come out. That way it's going to be a little bit easier to feed the element in through the grooves that I make. So I think that's enough for tonight. This stuff is actually pretty easy to cut, super easy, just like you see on all the other YouTube channels. They just cut it with a saw, and I mean, it cuts like butter. You would think this is fire brick, that it would be hard to cut, but it cuts like butter. Just use an old saw or something like that. You don't want to use your dad's brand new wood saw or whatever. So we're gonna call her good there for tonight and continue on tomorrow. Alright, so I got my grooves notched where I want to groove in, and I'm just going to use like a 1/4 inch router bit to go in there, and then a 1/2 inch ball underneath it. That way we can slip the coil inside and it won't fall out. I've watched a bunch of them videos and I didn't like when the coils were falling out, so we'll make it like a little channel where it can't fall out. And all I did was use this old filter here as a guide. It's about 3 inches in diameter. It's perfect. So our coil is going to be 1.5 inches off the bottom, 1.5 inches off the top, and then you got about 1.5 inches to center, 1.5 inches to center, so it should be pretty even heating. Here's a coil I got off of Amazon, and I'm going to say it's too small. It's only 1/4 inch diameter, but it's going to go in there like this. And this coil needs to be stretched out. There's got to be gaps between each one of the coils, so you have to stretch it out some. So I have lots here, but I think this little 1/4 inch coil is too small, and I've got some wire coming so I can wind my own like everybody else is doing. But it's supposed to be a 3,000 watt element, so we will see, but it looks like it should work here. So So it just gives you an idea of how this is going to be set up. The pigtails are going to go out the back, and that's what will get hooked up to the controller, and this coil will go in here and it'll turn yellow hot and light her up. And just router these straight lines and see how it works. Now we're going to set up this little mace looking thing. And he's going to make a ball groove in the bottom of there, so let's check that out. Okay, so I got my ohm meter, I don't know if you can see it here, hooked up to one part of the coil. I've got it doubled over and twisted together. And we're looking for about 9 ohms out of this wire. And I've been doing a little experimenting, and I took 3 inches of this coil and I heated it up and stretched it out, and it ended up being like 20 inches. So, I mean, this is a little confusing, but we're gonna shoot for 9. So 8.1, 8.9, there's 9. So let's give it a little bit more. 9.2, so somewhere about there. Better to have a little more than not enough. We're gonna put this into the vise and we're gonna stretch it. Now, well, that sucks that I just broke it. Never broke before when I did this way. So I got her too darn hot. We're looking for about 9 inches of straight. Luckily, that looks like we're just about 9. Yeah, we're just about 9 inches. So, okay, here we're gonna go about 3 inches up, check it. Gives us about 9.2. That'll be pretty good. Pretty good to our close to our 18 ohms. So now we're just going to bend it back over itself. Hopefully I don't break it, and then twist it up. We'll just feed this in. And it falls out of the thing already because it's the wrong diameter, but perfect. So there you go. That went in there good. I don't know if that little wire, if that little element's actually going to heat this up enough or not. But I mean, I've got more wire coming so I can make a bigger coil. I'm going to go do the other coil, stick it in here, and then we can kind of fit the end cap. And then we'll build the metal box on it, do some wiring, and maybe we'll get to test it out. All right, so now the trick is to try and get these little wires through all these holes that I've got drilled in here all at the same time. There. Kind of like that. Beauty. All right, we're back at her here this morning, and so far this is what I've got, and I'm just 100% winging this. I don't got nothing drawn up, no plans or nothing, but the heat treat oven's gonna sit in here right to the front. It's gonna have a little bit of space in the back for wires and stuff to come down through here. Inside here is where all the electronics is gonna go. I'm gonna make this face here out a little bit of an angle for the PID and the other switches to go in, and that whole drawer will slide in with all the electronics in case you need to fix something. You can just slide it in, slide it out. It's gonna be all enclosed in here. And right now, I'm gonna mount these little legs on the bottom here. I'm gonna drill in and mount them. So let's have a go at that. Alright, here we go. Here's the tray that's gonna go in. Slide in here. And we're gonna take it out. We're gonna bend it back to here, and we're gonna bend these here in so I can screw it into there, and then we'll be able to start installing our controller and our electronics. Okay, you can see here I got the door fitted. The fire brick is inside, fitted nice and tight. I haven't cemented it together yet, but I'm basically down to figuring out my arms and my geometry to open this door. What we want is the right arc that when we lift this door, it clears the little inset that I have and it goes up, and have some sort of springs or something that hold it up. And then when I bring it down, some sort of springs hold it down tight. So I'm not going to bother showing any of that stuff. It's going to be a little bit of thinking, and geometry wasn't my strong suit in school, but I'll figure it out. Alright guys, so as you can see, I got her all painted up. I cut in some vents in here in case it gets warm in there. Get some heat out of there to kind of minimize the expansion, and a bunch of playing around with spring rates and geometry on the spring rate. I finally got it so it opens super easy and it stays up and it drops down nice. Awesome, awesome. There's been a ton of work and a lot of hours figuring out the geometry and whatnot, and it's just by guess, by gamble, just try here, try there, whatnot. And I finally got it. And I actually bought these as a 8.5 inch spring, and I had to take an inch off because of where I placed this stud here. But now it's perfect. So now we're ready to start doing the electronics. And that might take me a while because, like I said before, electronics, wiring and me are not, you know, it's not my big subject. So I'll get her though. I've got a wiring diagram, and I'll get going and I'll show you guys some of the stuff while I wire it up. All right, here, so we're ready, pretty much ready for final connections, and it's just a matter of putting that high temp wire into here, tightening this one down. This one can go into here. All right, but all I have left is to mount these to the back, just with a couple of screws or something. And let's go see if the PID and everything works. All right, well, I got the panel and everything just out here, just in case I got to do any changes or whatever. But we're basically good to go. I haven't hooked up the switch for the door. When you lift the door up, it should shut the elements off. I haven't hooked that up, and I haven't put the probe in yet. But let's just see. Yes. Saying it's 70 degrees in here. Temperature goes up when I put my thumb over the probe. All right, I finally got it ramping up, heating up in there. And the problem I had to get on the computer here and read through the manual and stuff. And then I went and I looked at his wiring diagram that I got off of the YouTube channel that I'll put a link in the description, and maybe I'll put a button up here for you guys to go check out where I got the wiring diagram and everything from this from. But anyhow, I got looking at the wiring diagram and I didn't pay attention to the plus negatives on the SSDs. And when I looked at his diagram, if we can see it here, we'll see if this works. So when you look at the diagram there of the SSDs, when you place them like that, actually the positive on one is over here and the negative is over here because you have them reversed. It's hard to explain, but I just ran the wires straight across, as you might have seen when I was wiring it, and what they actually need to be is positive to positive, negative to negative, crisscrossed. Once I did that, she fired right up, and she's warming up 1100 degrees right now and climbing. So I know that might be a little confusing, but basically I was running positive to negative on the SSDs, and they need to be positive, positive, negative, negative. So it was a wiring mistake on my part, but like I said, wiring is not my strong suit, but I did get it figured out, and she's warming up. I've got it set to go to 1449 degrees, and we're at 1138 and climbing right now. I've had it at about 975 degrees now for about 20 minutes, and it's warm, but at this point you're not going to scorch yourself if you touched it. It's definitely warm. Yeah, she's pretty warm there on that side, but that's where the elements are, is on the sides. Up here it's fine. Right under the door, I wouldn't say it's too hot for this controller. I was thinking if it got too hot for the controller, I would put a little heat shield under here, and I still might. But so far so good. We're running 1165 degrees, and I don't have the door switch hooked up yet, so that's why I can open up the door and the elements stay on. But I'm just basically testing, getting this thing figured out. All right, so you can see I pulled the electrics out here a bit, and the only reason I did that is I see it's sweating some moisture out of the sides, probably out of the fire brick, and probably even from the cement that I used to hold everything together. It's probably still sweating moisture out of it. So I just didn't want to get moisture in the electrics part of it, so I figured I would just pull it out and let her heat up to temperature. All right, final thing to put on here is this little shield, and you can see the one circuit here and the other circuit here. The loop comes through there, through this wire. As the loop comes back, comes down, or however power works. But there you go. So we're just going to put this little shield on, so if guy reaches back there or something, you don't get zapped. Shoot a little paint on it and we'll be done. So there we go. The old heat treat oven is done. It's ramping up 550 degrees and climbing right now. And it's only been running maybe 10 minutes. So it climbs at a pretty decent rate. And I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. You can see I got a little switch here to shut the elements off when I lift it up. This switch turns the elements on. This one gives you main power to the panel. And I mean, it works pretty awesome. Thermocoupler's up here. And yeah, so you guys seen how the build went. It was pretty simple. The electronics and the electrics gave me a little bit of trouble, but like I said before, electrical is not my thing. But check this out. Look at that, hey? Pretty awesome. If I hit this button there, then the elements will stay on. Pretty darn cool. So I can't wait to get building some more knives again, get back to it. It's been about 20 years since I build knives. So you guys are going to be seeing me making some knives, and I'm going to show you how to do it real simple and everything. And then we'll be using the heat treat oven to start heat treating some sweet knives. So if you guys are liking this sort of content, go ahead, subscribe, share, like these videos. Hit the bell to be notified. Give me a thumbs up. Catch you guys on the next video.